Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com, how to make an outdoor chessboard. Now we're going to use mosaic tile available at any hardware store. I got mine at Home Depot, as well as some mortar and grout in order to make this chessboard. I started out by taking 2x4s and I coated them with hardy backer, which is kind of like a cement board. I cut them down to a height that allowed me to run one row of tiles around the border. I then used adhesive, construction adhesive, on top of those 2x4s, cut a piece of hardy backer, and I'm going to screw that hardy backer directly to the 2x4s. This is the frame and the base for the chessboard. I bought two different color mosaic tiles. These are relatively inexpensive. I got these at Home Depot, but Lowe's or any hardware store should have them. And the process, or my idea, was just to remove every other tile from the mesh backing and replace it with a darker tile, so that you would have alternating tiles just like you do in a chess or checkers set. I measured out the size. These particular tiles come 6 squares across, but for the chess set we're going to need a total of 8 left to right, and also 8 up and down. I measured that out, drew it out on the hardy backer, just so I know where I'm going to place the tiles. And then I also left enough room for a border. Now, I'm using a tile border, but you could use anything you'd like. You could use different types of tile. You could even use wood. I wanted this to be an outdoor chess set. I didn't want it to blow away in storms, so I decided to make mine out of tile and stone. It's going to be a little bit heavy, but it will certainly be durable. I laid out all the tiles just to see how the finished product would look. These mosaic tiles are also available in black and white, but I chose to use the earth tones, the brown, as well as the terracotta. I'm going to use Flex Bond as the mortar and something called Fusion Pro grout, both of which I'm told are very durable and will be the best products to use for an outdoor application like this outdoor chess board. I'm going to apply the Flex Bond mortar as shown, just with a trowel, a grooved trowel, and then I'm going to start to lay down the tiles. I've already removed every other tile from this mesh. I'm just going to push that mesh into place into the mortar, and then I'm actually using a small piece of wood. I'm going to start to apply additional mortar to the spaces as well as to each piece that I'm applying, and I'm going to inset each square and press them down so that they're fairly level. I wanted this chessboard to have kind of a rustic look. I didn't want the tiles to be 100% level or perfect, but you could certainly do it any way you like. This whole process really does not take all that long. Once you get started, it goes pretty quickly. This board is going to end up pretty large, good size outdoor table, and again, it's going to end up being pretty heavy, probably in the 20 to 30 pound range. You could certainly make it a little bit smaller than that if you had a wet saw and you wanted to cut down each one of those squares. I'm using just a plastic knife just to get some of that mortar out from the edges, from inside each groove. This way it gives it some space for that grout when we finally do the grout. And I'm just going to continue the upper portion of the board to lay down 2 more rows of tiles. Of course, laying down the mesh first, and then putting a little bit of the mortar on each tile as I apply it and pressing it firmly into position. Once all of the squares are in place, I can start to mortar the edges, and this will be for that tile border that I chose. And it goes on this basically the same way as the tile. The hardy backer board, well, the backing board that I chose for this product, is really very safe to use in situations where it can't possibly get wet. It doesn't deteriorate even if it was soaked in water. And it really holds on to that mortar very, very nicely. I used a wet saw to cut the miters on the border, on the 45s on each of the angles. Once all the pieces are in position, I'm going to just use a wet sponge to get off any of the mortar that's on the surface of the tiles or on the surface of the stone border. And then I'm going to let that dry completely for 24 hours before I do the grout. I can apply the tiles to the sides. At this time, I'm going to use the same small tiles, but you could use a larger tile and just cut it to size. I ended up buying 3 of those mosaic tiles. I bought a dark brown one. I bought 2 dark brown ones, and I bought one of the terracottas. And that was enough to do this complete project. In addition, of course, to the borders. I let that dry for 24 hours, and now I'm going to apply the Fusion Pro grout. I picked a light sand-colored grout, just because it went with the colors of this particular board. And I just used a glove, and I pushed that grout down into each of the grooves. And then using a wet sponge, just very lightly sponge off, and then I use a towel actually to wipe off as much of that grout as possible. You don't really want the grout covering or coating the surface of the tiles. You really just want it to be down in the grooves. And it took 2 or 3 wipings with that sponge to get all of the grout off of the surface of those tiles. It's not very difficult. You just have to do it 2 or 3 times. And I found that the wet towel actually worked nicely in the grooves, from the molding. And once all the grout was washed off, that's basically a finished product. We just had to set that aside for another, 24 hours or so. And it ended up with a beautiful outdoor weather-resistant chessboard. Certainly heavy enough so that it's not going to get blown away in any storm. Please check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com. Check out our other how-to project. And if you like this video, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel.